That's what she said. Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. We're having some technical difficulties today. We're hoping that we've resolved it. Advice that real estate investors hear, or new investors hear, that actually hurts you. To help me with this today, I have an investor who has an interesting story on how real estate sometimes can go awesome, and sometimes it might not. And sometimes it's based on the advice that you hear. So, Kurt, actually, we've interacted now for a couple of years. You put together the Northwest Action Summit, which is this year, May 3rd and 4th in Vancouver, Washington. Smart move, moving it out of Portland. I much appreciate that. So people can understand why the importance of what source you get your advice from. Can you tell us a little bit about what got you interested in real estate?
Kind of all the buzzwords around flipping and wholesaling and cash. You know, basically the ease of the conversation, the ease of making money by flipping homes, sort of got me interested in it. And then in 2015, the Flip This House, Dan Merrill Wealth Builders course, I think was hit me on Facebook, and that got me kind of to dive in a little bit and start doing some research.
And what did the first couple of years look like for your investing?
My mind was in the big thing was, do the research, find the houses, and then you can flip them. And I just could not fathom being able to find enough deals to make this happen more than once in a lifetime. Honestly, that was, looking back, it took me a little time to dig into that and go, what stopped me from spending $30,000 on a backpack that day? And I tell people today, I wish I would have spent $30,000 on a backpack. Not because I think I would have got something that was worth $30,000, except for a kick in the ass. If you spend 30 grand on a backpack, you better believe I'd be making phone calls and I would have been doing stuff in 2015 that I wish I would have been doing that I'm doing today, that has taken me 9 years to follow through on.
So the sunk cost theory, I put so much into this, I better take it serious and take action.
A little bit, like for me, I can look back and say that's what I wish I would have done, because I just wish I would have started then. Whatever it would have taken to get that started would have put me in such a different place today than I am.
So 2015 is when you got interested, got the bug.
The end of 2015, yeah. I took a 3-day course, and I tell you what, I learned from that $100 course 90% of what I use today.
What's funny about real estate investing is it's not complicated. Right? It's not easy, but it's not complicated.
It's simple.
Once you get the core system down. I had a gentleman on, it was 240 rental units, and he says, I basically do this because I can do 6th grade math. So that's what it took him. How did your investing go when you started taking action?
Had some business issues, and COVID really helped that. And I was like, okay, I got this other stuff off my plate. I'm gonna flip this house. I'm gonna flip a house. I'm gonna put this to work, and spent like 2 months kind of going through the process. I had my wife was my realtor at the time. That's a whole nother story. But we started, making some offers, and we locked one up off the MLS for 70% of ARV minus the repairs. And it's like, holy crap. Like, I'm not just saying this out loud, like I'm doing it. I knew a hard money lender. My brother was my partner on the first deal. He brought half the cash. I brought half the cash. It didn't take a ton, and we were off and running. And like 30 days into that, like, holy cow, this works. Let's buy 5 more properties.
And so how many did you end up flipping?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah. Till death do us part. They all turned out great. They would have turned out better if I would have done them one at a time or cycled them better. But I just didn't know any better. So
I've had the financial firefighter, Mark Ashiro from Hawaii on my channel, and he emptied out his retirement accounts, purchased 14 units in the first couple of years, and he has said often, I just wish I'd gone slower. Like you have several evictions and several tenant turnovers all happening at the same time in your first couple of years when you're still figuring everything out, it becomes a big challenge. And so what I want to do now is cover some of the worst advice we've ever heard. And this is where I check to make sure we're actually streaming this time. YouTube is awesome. It's never had a problem. I've had a lot of people talk about how important it is to diversify. And I'm in the Choose FI groups. I'm a moderator in the BiggerPockets Facebook groups and the real estate rookie groups. And then I hear people often, whenever something comes in, I'm a new investor, what's your advice? And I see this, you need to diversify. And they'll talk about index stocks, dividend stocks, starting a business and a side hustle and owning real estate and the different types of real estate, and then having your retirement accounts. And I think that's kind of one of the, not the worst, but dumbest advice on the list, because I really like Charlie Munger, Warren Buffett's partner, rest in peace. But he used to say, and in the beginning, I think it irritated Warren Buffett when he heard this because he didn't get the end part of it. Charlie would say, don't diversify. You diversify to protect your wealth. If you diversify, you'll never get the wealth to protect. You need to focus on one asset class, master it, grow till you have wealth. Once you have wealth, then sure, you diversify, like Kevin O'Leary says. Maybe then you go 20% in each asset class, 5% in an asset, and then you protect your wealth. So that'd be the first one I would go with. What's some of the advice that you've heard that you think hurts new investors?
I think the big one, risk research speaks to what you're saying, is like you get millionaires have 7 income streams. And it's like, yeah, once you're a millionaire, again, now you start that next stream of income. Usually it's linear. So if you have a bunch of rentals, right, you start a management company, you start a maintenance company, you become a realtor. Like, but people don't think it that way. They think I got to have a side hustle on, selling sprockets on, on Instagram or Instacart, or I got to have a YouTube channel. I got to have, other ways to bring more money in the beginning when your first side hustle doesn't even pay the bills yet.
So I can definitely speak to, you don't need to get on YouTube to make money. That is not something that YouTube does. Networking through YouTube can make you money. Networking through Instagram, Facebook, social media, kind of like this Northwest Action Summit coming up on May 3rd and 4th. The Millennial Mike is presenting there, right? So if you want to know how to house hack in an expensive area, how to invest at a distance, you've got Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time there. So literally he has 9 millionaires coming on his channel every week to share how they did it, what they're doing now, what's changed. So if you look at YouTube, I would not look at it as a revenue source. I would look at it as a networking source. I'll go with, if you want to retire early. So this isn't for the people who want to work 40 years, 40 hours a week to retire on 40% of what they make. I mean, the people who actually want a livable income that they don't have to sell their life for 1 hour at a time before they're old. Some of the dumbest advice I hear is to put money into your retirement accounts. If you have no way to invest, no way to put your money to work, sure, it's better than nothing to gate lock your money behind an age and put a fee wall between you and that money. But there's 3 people that get rich off your retirement accounts, which is why we keep hearing how great retirement accounts are. The first one is the government, right? They know they're going to make more money on your taxes in the future. The second is your employer. It's a recruiting and retention program to get more employees to say we have a retirement account. And the third one is the account managers. They make money even if you lose money. So if you want to retire when you're at an age and you have no other way of investing, sure, retirement accounts make sense. But I think it's bad advice for investors who plan on retiring early.
This is one that really burns me a lot is, people who think that the first thing they need to do is pay off their house. So, and it's just a mindset for people in general, but like, I want to feel the security of my house being paid off, which you get the ability to have the lowest interest rate loans on your own personal income. and it is the best hedge against inflation. And so, but the feeling is that you have the security by having your primary source. No one can take it away. I got news for you. You're paying the taxes every year, whether it's paid off or not, right? And you stop paying taxes for a year. Like, I bet you get some letters. So that's my. I just talked to someone about this the other day. Like, yeah, the house is paid off, and they're trying to figure out how to build more, passive income for future retirement, so they can do less of their day job.
So I'll kind of tie this one together with that. And so Dave Ramsey has what I call, I say this on YouTube, a crap sandwich. So the first two baby steps of the 7 are great. I think everybody should do that. And the 7th one is amazing. I think everybody should do that. It's get an emergency fund of $1,000, build reserves. The step 2 is build reserves for 3 months of your expenses. And then the last one is to figure out a way to give back. But everything in the middle, like paying off your house. I paid off one of my mortgages. It's cost me $1 million. I've lost $1 million because I paid off a mortgage. It was only $121,000, but I did it at a time where I could have bought a fourplex, because I did buy a fourplex that year, and I could have taken that $121,000, bought another fourplex with the down payment that has appreciated more than $1 million since I've owned it. And instead, I paid off a house, which has appreciated a little bit. I didn't start another depreciation schedule. I didn't have tenants paying it off. Big mistake. But right in the middle with that Dave Ramsey stuff, save 20% down to buy your house so that you don't have mortgage insurance. And the mortgage insurance might be anywhere from $50 to $300 a month. And so, yeah, that's not cool to have. So I would recommend conventional loan instead of FHA so that you can get rid of the mortgage insurance. But if homes appreciate on average 5% per year and you're buying a $400,000 house, the years that it takes you to accumulate the 20% down, you're losing tens of thousands of dollars more than the PMI would have cost you had you saved up 5%, bought a duplex. So yes, I think that's some of the dumbest advice that hurts investors. Your next one?
Use the bank and get insurance. I bought a house yesterday. We're under contract. I'm literally writing out my budget for the house. I put in $110 a month for the homeowner's insurance, and my lender, the previous owner, says, "Why don't you just self-insure?" Okay.
And so how does that work for you?
Well, I feel pretty comfortable because I have reserves in general, and I have a pretty good construction knowledge. So I have enough equity in the property, and my new lender doesn't care if I have insurance. So I need to make sure that I can cover damage and stuff that happens in general, right? I'm still responsible for the note if the house gets wiped out. But insurance doesn't cover crap. So like you start doing the due diligence on the flood insurance, it covers the first $20,000. And I'm paying, $1,600 a year for a $20,000 coverage. So the only reason you're paying that is because your mortgage company says you have to have insurance for that. So do I have the ability to come up with $20,000 in a pinch if I need to? Yeah. Do I get to deduct that? Now I'm cash flowing, and it wasn't that, he didn't like insurance companies. And since he's my lender, he didn't care that I had an insurance. So now I just need to be covered from liability and I can do that with a umbrella policy, which is more of a general liability. Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, I think when it comes to insurance, we all look at it as our case to case. Like an example is, I would never have life insurance on myself because my kids would have killed me for a slice of pizza and never be worth more dead than you are alive. But there are people, if you have family members dependent on your income, life insurance makes sense. If you have all your kids have moved out, you're not married, or you have assets that produce income, I think having like life insurance can be a mistake. When it comes to property insurance, you need to look at your portfolio. Just like reserves, it changes and scales with the size of your portfolio and what your goals are. Here's some of the really bad advice that I hear from what we call the crash bros. This is somebody who says, wait for housing prices to crash so that you can buy. or wait for interest rates to come down so that you can buy. And what happens when either one of those happen, if prices come down, lenders disappear. We actually have proof of this from 2009 to 2013, when all of a sudden you could only have 4 conventional loans in your name instead of 10. Lenders wouldn't lend on certain amounts. Lending criteria went through the roof because prices came down. So if prices come down, the people who are waiting for that won't be able to buy. And then if interest rates come down, what's that going to do to demand? Demand is going to spike, which is going to cause prices to go up. So the advice of timing the market in both cases that the Crash Bros keep saying to wait for are not buying opportunities. Your next one?
Oh, this is, I had a friend who didn't buy a house in 2019, right? Because he talked to his other friend about it, who said, oh, I'm not sure about the market coming up. Like, that's pretty risky. And this is a simple, we're looking back 4 years. What would you have liked to have bought that house now that appreciated double? That's worth 700,000. He was going to buy it for, 375. He would have put 20,000 down. He's like, oh God, I wish I would have bought that house. I'm like, why were you listening to this person? Were they an investor? Were they a homeowner? What expertise did they have for you to listen to their advice? And his response was, they were kind of a friend, and they didn't own a house. They weren't an investor, and they didn't have any of that. So he didn't buy it. It was his personal house. He still doesn't own a house today. And it's, looking at that same house at $200,000 more at an interest rate at 7%. It's like, oh God, why was I listening to that person? And so listening to people that aren't experts.
Right. So listening to the experts sometimes. I did a video about 2 months ago, and it got me the threat of litigation. And so I won't use his name, and I won't put it in a thumbnail or a title, but there was somebody whose name sounds like Peter Smith, right? He just sounds like that. I don't know, it could be close. I made a video and I said, Peter cost my friend $100,000. And it was because in 2021, I was buying a duplex. And there was one across the street, identical. Like, I mean, it was like the same company that built it, put it there. And it was a little over a 10% cash on cash return. But in 2021, Peter had put out a video that said forbearance is about to end. When forbearance ends we've been a year from COVID. When forbearance ends, there's going to be all the mass foreclosures. It's going to flood the market. Prices are going to drop a huge amount. So I said, since my friend listened to Peter, he didn't buy the other duplex because I had the funds and the ability to buy the one. And I told him, hey, this is a great deal. You should take this deal. He passed on it. And it has gone up well over $100,000 since then. It is cash flow day one. So even listening to the experts, when they say something like, let's predict rates, prices, recession, or anything that's going to happen 6 months or a year from now, instead of saying, there's 2 things that tell you when to buy, and none of them are the market. I have 2 left. The second to last one is, and this is my favorite, because I respond the same response to this every time I see it. When I hear people say all debt is bad. If it wasn't for debt, I would have to work. That's my response every time I see it. I have a little under $1.8 million in debt, and I wish it was 10 million. I wish I was playing the Cody and Christian strategy of racking up massive debt to then have cash flow and tenants do debt destruction and inflation debt destruction, and they will be 10 times richer than I am because they have more debt. And yes, I retired and I went from like a 70% loan to value goal down to like 50. So I'm a little more conservative since I retired and don't have the W-2. But it's because of that debt that I have what's called levered depreciation. So if I bought a property for $100,000, I would pay taxes. If it was an all cash purchase, I would pay taxes on the income because I'm only depreciating $100,000 property. If I put $100,000 down on a $400,000 property, I'm depreciating $400,000. And so the money that I make, I've not still in a decade paid a penny of rental income tax. And honestly, if it wasn't for debt, I might have saved in a decade enough to purchase a duplex and be house hacking 1 duplex now versus having 18 rental units that produce multiple six figures in profit a year in it.
Mhm.
You're next.
Oh, you had it, and I got so enthralled by that story that I forgot it. You need money to buy real estate, and that's I talk to people a lot. I get caught up in this too. I have a deal I'm working on tomorrow that it gives me this hiccup of like, I'm gonna have to come up with a little bit, this money, this 20 grand or 30 grand to buy this $200,000 property. Like, oh, where am I going to get it from? And that since I say that, I'm back in my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, I have a few sources. But yeah, you need money to buy real estate. I would tell people that no, you don't need money. But if you don't have money, you need relationships. You need to have been networking. You need to have built that portfolio of other options prior to. So,
So the one caveat I would say there is what you said earlier on how you have reserves. I think if you have reserves, it's easier to do the no money strategies with real estate than if you don't have the reserves. I'm not saying that you have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in your account, but a good 10 grand for the weird random things that are going to pop up. But no, trying to think. The most I had the first couple of years starting out was $28,000 saved up. Reserves, down payment, closing costs, all of it put together, money for immediate repairs. Yeah, it took a couple of years to get there. And if I had partnered with somebody, it could have happened sooner, could have happened with less money. So my last one, but then I'm going to cheat with one. And I don't want to talk about the last one. I'm just going to mention it because if I talk about it, it'll take an hour. But this last one is, and I hear this on some of the bigger podcasts now. Cash flow doesn't matter. Focus on appreciation. And if you're a new investor and you see somebody making an appreciation play, meaning they bought a property saying in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be worth way more money, then I'm going to sell it and I'm going to make a bunch of money. If you're a brand new investor, that is an investing killer. If you have, and I'll pick on Matt, the lumberjack landlord, right? 137 rental units. He bought a jail. He's got a massive cash flow, massive size portfolio. He's stabilizing and optimizing. If he went out right now and said, I'm taking $1 million, I'm going to buy this property that's basically break even because in 5 or 10 years, it's going to be worth $3 million. I'd be like, that's totally fine. Because it's this much of the size of your portfolio. You won't, if it burned to the ground and you lost it, you wouldn't care. You would care. You wouldn't feel it. You wouldn't notice. But that new investor, if you're not investing for cash flow, you're not multiplying your income to be able to acquire more assets. The appreciation doesn't acquire assets in a shorter amount of time. And it doesn't guaranteed to acquire assets. And so what's your last one?
Wholesaling is the easiest way in to real estate. Oh, it's crazy because wholesaling is the toughest job. It takes cash. If you don't have $5,000 to $10,000 to start marketing, to start spending money on marketing to people, you have no leads. If you don't have leads, you don't have the ability to wholesale a deal to make more money. And then to go knock on doors and talk to sellers, like I would argue that's one of the hardest and least favorable things to do in real estate. To know what a rehab costs, to know what the actual ARV in a pocket market is. Like these are things that real estate agents do for years and still don't know how to do. So although it sounds enticing, it's a great line. One of the biggest sources.
There's got to be something that's attractive about wholesaling because it gets so much attention. To me, there's a couple things. One, it's a job, right? So I wasn't investing to create a job. Two, it's episodical like a job. You stop working, the money stops coming in, kind of like the flipping thing, right? You guys flipped over a dozen properties, but you stop working. It doesn't keep making money. But it's a skill set. Like it's a massive sales coordination, people skill set. If you're going to put that much time and energy and effort into something, it definitely wouldn't be wholesaling, would not be my choice either. And my last one that I'm going to cheat with, because I said it was my last, that I'll wrap up with, and I will not talk about this subject, but I will bring it up, is when a new investor is told you need to have an LLC. You need to have all your properties, each one in a separate LLC. And I'm going to use an unprofessional term, The level of retardedness in that sentence tells me that the person speaking is not an investor. They're somebody that wants to be an investor and they've watched commercials. Horrible advice. There are times it makes sense, times you need it. If you have partners, you need an LLC. If you need hard money or lending that requires an LLC, you need it. But it doesn't do the things people always want it to. So we'll wrap up that with the horrible and worst advice people ever get. Tell us a little bit before we get to the questions in the comments, which is the point of these live streams. And our other guest might jump in here at any point in time. She's very patient. The Northwest Action Summit. Tell me about it.
So Northwest Action Summit. So you can go to nwactionsummit.com, get a little more information, buy tickets. Keynote, Michael Zuber, some of our other esteemed guests, Dion, Mike, William Mike, Jesse Lee, Patrick Joy, Melissa Dorman, Jeff Stevens, all a wealth of knowledge and honestly very specific. Like they have their own niches that they're working in, that they've gone deep in, and how they invest. Everybody's different. Everybody does it differently. There's so many ways to do it. We started this 3 years ago because we didn't have anything like it in the Northwest. And I wanted to see people and talk to them. I believe the value of your net worth is your network. And how do I, in my mind, I was at that time, how do I bring these people here so that we can, get intimate and have in-depth conversations about why you don't need an LLC to invest when you have 2 rentals or 3 rentals, or how you invest out of state, how you deal with private money lenders. What does that really look like from people who are doing it? And like what I got from all of our kind of local smaller networks, meetup events, was people who had done this and done that. And I would say there's a wealth of knowledge there, but there wasn't a big wealth of knowledge there at the same time. And so, and I wanted more information. I wanted to drink from the fire hose. And so, we brought, 24 people in to speak and present for a day and a half, and another 200 people to come, ask questions and listen. And God, it was just amazing that first year, and it's just grown from there. So the information that you get sitting in one room, just kind of asking questions and having conversations that you didn't plan, is immense, versus having 6 questions lined up to ask every person and get a variance of the same thing. Like, for me, the conversations that are the most intriguing are the ones I didn't realize I was going to have. And so that's what bringing everybody together in the same room did and does. It's awesome.
I think a lot of the people that are here in the comments today recently went to the Michael Zuber One Rental at a Time event in Las Vegas and got to see the power of, the presenters. It's great to be able to ask your questions. You can do that during a live stream. You can do it online. You can email most of us. Most of us put our contact info out there. But it's those questions that happened at the side of the room or in the hallway or in the back room that, again, just like you didn't know they were going to happen. You didn't know they were going to come up. Or somebody else asks a question that kind of opens your mind to an entirely new concept. I've liked the Northwest Action Summit going down there. I look forward to Jeff Stevens' presentation. Right? So mine is, I'm not a tech guy. I'm not very organized. Let me show you how I reach financial freedom with a lack of those skills. And Jeff brings it every year. It's great. So
he's amazing. And I learned from him the first year. A deal I put under contract yesterday came from a letter I sent because of his Facebook class, right? We all coach, Jeff and himself coach under Greg Penio. He's our mentor, but Jeff did this class that was very detailed about how to do it. And I just bought a house with 10% down and no bank at a 70% LTV, but it's rent ready. So, nice. 4%, 15-year AM from a seller, because I listened to the conversations he was having, and it got me intrigued to ask the next question. So yeah, those things are almost invaluable. And Friday, we're doing a VIP day where it's actually like 35 people get to come spend half the day, 6 hours, with all the speakers in one room. So it really gives us the opportunity to go over what you're doing, how I might take your portfolio or what you're doing and tweak it a little bit to fit to what I'm doing. And that's not to say you need to change what you're doing, but it's just more of an eye-opening perspective of like, oh wow, I didn't see that. I didn't see how I could leverage this. Or I didn't think about recently I learned about wholetailing, which is sort of buying a property that is kind of a fixer off market and just putting it on the market for someone who wants an inexpensive house to buy, versus putting a lot of risk and flipping it, investing the money. Just new thought, new concept to me. I was like, oh, which shouldn't have been, but here it was.
That's okay. We all got to start from some lack of knowledge to get it. That's what this networking is about, which is why Beth is here.
Hey
Howdy, Beth.
there. Hi, Kurt. Sounds like a great
Hello.
summit. What a great lineup is going to be there. I saw in the comments all those familiar names and some real powerhouses there. So I'm sure that's going to be fantastic.
There's a lot of mistakes that have happened in the past there. A lot of
That's
learning
okay.
to be had.
Everybody understands.
Right.
It's all good. Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I've seen your name around. I think we're friends on social media, maybe. So
Yep, definitely. Yeah.
nice to chat with you and everybody here. So thanks, Dion, for having me on.
No, I appreciate you coming. You always have a perspective that I don't. I'm not a real estate agent. I've been investing less time than you. You've got a ton of knowledge that I'm super happy that you're here to share. And I notice that your living area is looking more and more like a YouTube studio. Like
This is my office. I'm still
Like-
working on my actual Zoom area, but this is my physical office down in beautiful downtown Fall City, Washington. Yeah, so I'm working from the office today. I'm not out of my house like I often do. So I
Oh,
still
I
do
thought you were
that.
updating the house for your
We
YouTube
work
channel.
everywhere. We work in the car. We work all over. There's no place we're not working, right? So yeah.
Nice. So can you, we went over a list of bad advice investors have heard. Do you have your top two worst advice you think investors?
Yeah. So here's one that might be something I have is a little more unique is girls shouldn't buy rental properties because guys won't want to date you. I was actually told that long time ago. So thankfully I ignored it because it shouldn't matter. Just you do you, whatever. It shouldn't matter who you are or what walk of life you're from or any of that, and who cares if somebody didn't want to date me because of that, well, then that's a good self-selection, so, but somebody did tell me that. And I don't know, maybe I did miss out on some dating opportunities way back in the day, but oh well, who cares? So, but I was told that. And then and that wasn't maybe it, that was 20 years ago too, so today I would hope people wouldn't say that same thing, but you never know. It's I'm sure it's a whole new batch of bad advice now. Just basically don't do it in general, probably because landlords are bad. Don't be an investor because landlords are bad. Somebody needs to provide rental housing. So anyway, I know we all understand that, but and I haven't had anybody tell me that, but I'm sure people hear that a lot, that don't invest because landlords are bad. The other one, I remember I had a financial advisor. I've had several financial advisors tell me you should diversify, sell your real estate, diversify, and buy these funds or whatever, because they didn't understand. I do have somebody I work with now where I'm more diversifying from my real estate a little bit into that at this point, but they also invest in real estate and they have never tried to talk me out. That was one of the things. If you're going to try to talk me out investing in real estate, then I'm not going to want to hear anything you have to say. And the person I have now does not do that. But many have in the past. It's like, oh, nobody wants to, it's too much work, the bad tenants, the evictions or whatever, lay on the 10 different reasons why real estate investing is bad and, mutual funds are good. And meanwhile, my real estate portfolio there's no comparison to where that is versus these other funds that are just kind of a side note. So, and I watched the progress over time and doesn't begin to come close to what the real estate portfolio has done. So I know we're all fans. That's why we're here, real estate. So I'll have to explain that to folks, but yeah, those two things I'd say were the two worst pieces of advice that I've heard. Well, I can think of some others. So you guys probably have covered too.
That's
Don't borrow
okay.
money to buy. Yeah, you need to pay off these rentals. That's a typical one too. I can't believe you owe those millions of dollars. How do you sleep at night?
Like a baby.
I know the
On a
tenants
lumpy
pay.
mattress full
I
of
live for
cash.
free. I live for free. Anyway, yeah. So, it's a good thing.
Don't own rentals because a guy's not going to want to date you. I think if a man was intimidated by a woman because she owned assets, that's not somebody you would want to date.
No.
I think it's a good litmus screening test.
And honestly, I've been married for 18, 19 years almost, so this was way back before that, obviously. But, even now, if I was to hypothetically put myself in that situation, I don't know that I would lead with that anyway. Like, hey, I own all this properties. What do you own? I don't think I would be like where I would start, but.
Well, then we have a couple of examples of younger guys like Millennial Mike. He starts dating Marina a while ago, and he's like, "Hey, it's really nice to meet you. Here, let's buy you a triplex."
Mm-hmm.
And then Cody, from Cody and Christian, well, how do you increase the size of your rental portfolio? You start dating a girl who owns rentals, right? There's the other side of the coin. Maybe the people you might want to meet are there.
And, you go enough of these events, if you mingle around, you might meet other like-minded people who are aligned in their goals and life trajectories. So
it is much better to find a spouse that is going in the same direction as you financially than any other aspect.
Yeah. And when I met my husband, I had a house in a rental. I had a house hack that I was living in a rental, and he had a house hack he was living in a rental. I'm a realtor. He's a contractor. We both wanted to buy more real estate. It was just, it all aligned perfectly. So it worked out well that way.
Nice.
So he loved it that I own rental property. So you just got to find your right person in your right tribe, right? So
that was a caveat that Dion, I forgot when I was just dating my current wife, who we just got married in September. We've been dating for 4 years, so that's why she's now my wife. But she was a real estate agent, so it was like, oh, let's start flipping houses and use your license to find me a good deal.
And if Kurt goes missing tomorrow, everybody will understand it's because Jennifer heard you say current wife.
We both been married before. I said lots of mistakes.
I look at it like I hope my properties perform better than all of my marriages. Actually, until death do us part.
Yeah.
All-Nighter Hider here says, so we're going to start going through comments here. Bitcoin is digital real estate on a digital ledger that's recorded by the blockchain, and go. Beth, what is your opinion?
Sorry, what? I don't
What's your opinion of crypto?
The question.
It's not really a question. It's no All-Nighter Hider trying to give us something to debate.
Oh, okay.
Of crypto.
I have 1/4 of a Bitcoin that I purchased. I don't really know how to debate it, but I have 1/4 of a Bitcoin plus some other miscellaneous stuff that I bought right at the peak, maybe, I don't know, 1.5 2 years ago. It immediately dropped in value, I don't know, 70% or something. And then it just now came back in the last maybe couple of weeks. I haven't checked it in the longest time. Like, oh, now it's back in the green again. But then it just went down like 20% in 2 days. And it's like, oh, okay. It's extremely volatile.
Yeah.
I wouldn't use it for anything other than just play money. Like if this is your reserves or you got to live off this money, I think it's way too risky. I think Bitcoin is probably the least risky one, but still, I mean, just looking at the volatility of what it did just in the last couple of days, like up 30%, down 20, and just boom, boom, boom. It's play money to me. Some people are making millions. Awesome. I would love it if all of a sudden that 1/4 of a Bitcoin was worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and maybe someday it will be, but who knows? I'm just trying to recoup my losses at this point. So it was a folly. And I bought a bunch of junk coins over on Coinbase too. I remember just threw like $100 here, $100 there on all these random things. Just, it was like the closest to gambling I've done. And I don't gamble, because we were together in Vegas and I didn't gamble once. So, but I did buy these crypto garbage, which is kind of feels like buying scratch off tickets or something. So
at least while you're gambling at the casino, you're entertained for that hour.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about it. Like I don't ha- I'm into real estate 24/7 for the last 5 years, to really understand and get, into the individual deals that I'm working on. I don't have time to try to figure out how to make money mining Bitcoin from the Chinese lady or whoever else on Facebook is, enamoring me with how they made people millions, and all these other
Oh
people
yeah.
who don't really exist now have been able to buy homes. It's like, well, I just bought homes. I didn't worry about trying to do all these other things to buy them. I just focused on that piece. And so many distractions. Like, get rid of the.
Yeah, I just opened up my Robinhood and it's down 4.61% today. So which
I don't
equates
have
to
a
like
Robinhood.
$1,100. I guess I lost $1,112 today. I didn't know that. And then over the
Yay.
week, it's 14.79% this week. So it's down $4,000 this week, but it's up 16% for the month. So,
So the way that All Nighter phrased that is it's the digital real estate. So it'd be like if you took real estate and made it digital so that, because when real estate is real estate, the largest crash we've ever had in a 12-month period was 8.9%, right? It took 3 years to have the massive crash from '08 to 2011. But in 1 year, the largest we've ever had is 8.9. Crypto, in less than a quarter, 9 times has crashed 50%. So if we could take real estate and digitalize it, then it can be that volatile too, which is why, like you, it's play money. I call Jaspreet Singh from Minority Mindset calls lottery a tax on the poor, right? Poor people tend to lose more money playing lottery than wealthier people. But if you're very wealthy and you have cash flow and you're financially free and you take some money and you throw it at lottery and you're just totally fine with losing it, it's just so you can daydream. That's how crypto is.
yeah.
But in this last
If it
month,
ever turns into something, it's just going to be the cherry on top. I
this
don't know.
last
I mean, I
month,
didn't
since we had
sell
a
it when it
rally,
crashed because what's the point, So I've just been waiting this last year and a half or whatever I think, let's see all. I guess it is up 20% all time. So I did make some money.
so a 20% all, and when did you buy it?
I think it was in 2021, maybe. It's been at least a year and a half, 2 years, something like that. I bought it right before it crashed big time, whenever that was. Somebody will know when that was, but
So
I
let's
can't
say you
find an
have a
easy way on here to
20% gain.
say when that was. Yeah.
None of that is cash flow. You would get that gain if you sold it, which would then be a taxable event.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've had people say, well, what if a CD is 5% and a real estate is a 5% return? I would take a 5% return in real estate over a guaranteed 10% return on a CD.
Yeah.
Because
And
of
also because it's lever, if I put 20% down on a $500,000 property, I'm getting the gain on 500,000, not the 100,000. So there's all sorts of ways to make more money with real estate, even if it had the same return on the face of it.
And the tax advantages for the return, like
Yeah.
negate profits.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great.
we've got some people talking about going to Angelo's because All Night Hider is in Gary, Indiana right now doing, I don't know if you guys are aware, Millennial Mike pooled some people together on the purchase, and All Night Hider is doing some of the work to it. And they have a meetup tonight, but we have a members only meetup tonight at 6. If you're a member of the channel at 6 tonight, there is a members only meetup on Zoom call. So I think All Nighter, you should probably go to Angelo's, do the local thing while you're there. Looking through for questions. And this is when everybody was realizing we weren't online yet.
You guys probably had a great conversation and unlocked the mysteries of how to make millions in a whole brand new way.
Killer. Kurt's first intro was killer. Then the stream did whatever it was doing and we restarted, and I wish the first one was there.
Oh,
I think Dion crossed the streams.
I think so. Yes, you're never supposed to. Bill O'Connor says, bad advice. I let Ken McElroy talk me out of buying at the start of 2020 because he said there was going to be a 40% crash. I remember Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time publicly said, Ken, I'll bet you $10,000 that that doesn't happen. And then Ken came back later, of course, and he has not been one of the crash posts, but he was at the very beginning of 2020. And there were a lot of people, Bill, just like that heard that in 2020. And I purchased a fourplex in January of 2020, and then I was going to sit back because of all the stuff that was happening. And Zuber pointed out in his daily update, have you seen what happened to interest rates? So I started running the numbers on the properties at the prices they were with those new lower interest rates. And I was like, every deal's great. And I started making offers every day. So got to watch who we listen to.
The experts.
Yeah.
Your neighbor or the YouTube star, you know.
The experts
Yeah, we
are
talked about-
at least as wrong as everybody else, if not more wrong, you know.
Yeah, one of the deals was interesting, like interest rates, costs. Like I direct market to buy houses here. I'm in Florida, I'm in Pensacola, and the house we bought is yesterday. We entered a contract for this new property, new rental. It should rent for like $1,800 a month here. Our contract value was we agreed to $174,000 with 10% down, and then the rest of it is on a seller note for 15 years, amortized with 4%. No fees, no points, no nothing. So
Early
we talked about
prepayment
that
penalty?
during the intro. We talked about he asked for 3 years. The whole reason he called me. He's got this property for sale. I send a nice letter that says I'm looking to buy properties. He called me and said, I got this property. Sounds like it's just what you want. My only problem is that I have to carry the note for a couple years. I said,
Yeah, they're
oh,
trying to
tell
avoid
me
a
more.
tax event or something, usually.
Correct. I said, well, tell me more about that. So we've talked for a few weeks. We came to agreement that everything that he wanted is very reasonable. I showed up and I said, I met him in person. We sat down and talked, and he said 3 years. And I said, okay, that sounds great. I can only afford to make this much payments and still afford everything else. So that's kind of where I'm at. And we came to the agreement of 15 years at 4%. He actually said 5% that the number. And I said, 5, can't we do 4? And he said, I can do 4. And in my back of my mind, all I was thinking was, if you don't ask, the answer is no.
Right. Exactly.
And he asked for 3 years at least. And I said, how about we do 5? And let me tell you why I did that. I said, if we can do 5, then we can guarantee that we're stretching your taxes out. And here's what I'll do. I'll actually put a substitution of collateral clause in the note so we can guarantee that we can do it for at least 5. And we'll also give a slice and dice clause so we can cut it up into multiple properties just in case. That way we can make sure we're giving you the interest rate. And I have a 15-year note that I can use on any future purchase that I want. If I sell this property, it's not taxable.
That's one of the beauties of seller financing is
Right.
everything's negotiable.
And whose idea was that? He wanted the prepayment penalty. I'm like, that sounds great. So we just got to put this stuff in there to make sure that it works.
Right.
It was great.
James here asks the question. I'm going to get your guys' take on it. CPA appointment is tomorrow, and he asked for all my insurance premiums. He didn't ask me for those for the past 3 years. I didn't know they were countable expenses. Should I fire him now or next year? Beth?
I mean, I don't know the whole side of everything, but it sounds to me like they don't really know what they're doing if they're not asking for that, because it should be obvious that you would be writing off those insurance expenses. It makes me wonder what else they're missing. It might be hard to find somebody else to file it for you this year. I probably wouldn't do it this year, but I would do it next year. But I would just want to make sure that they have everything on there. Taxes, insurance, all your expenses on there for every property.
Great learning lesson. I think this says that CPAs only do taxes. I think you need 3 accountants or CPA people. I think you need a bookkeeper, someone who understands real estate, right? Every penny you spend that can be associated with real estate, premiums, maintenance, repairs, classes, education of yourself, right? When you have rentals, learning how to take care of them better, MTRs where you're furnishing, all that stuff is a daily kind of bookkeeping task that your bookkeeper should have pretty good information about. Your CPA just takes that stuff from the bookkeeper and files it. They might have a couple of little questions, but I think the key to taxes is a strategist, a
I'm going to have to sign off for a moment here. Sorry, guys. I'll come back though. I'm just going to turn
You're
my
welcome.
video off.
Whenever you come back.
The tax strategist. So that's the third person. And the third person, that tax strategist, sits back, has a conversation with you. What does the whole scenario look like? This is where accelerated depreciation comes into play. What is your W-2? Maybe you need to work less. Maybe you need to buy more. And a CPA, they just don't ask those questions. You'd think they should, but they don't see it as their job. Their job is to file the taxes and keep you out of jail. But this also gives you the opportunity to bring in another person and review the past 3 or 4 or 5 years and, count all that stuff and go back and amend your taxes. And, if it's good, send the amendment in and get more money back. I mean, you get to go back a few years on that. And also, it's just a good review. You should do that every 3 or 4 years anyway.
Yeah, so there was two things I was going to say. One is have your taxes looked at, because you can have them amended. You can go back a couple of years. That's really great advice. But the other thing is, James, you said they asked for your insurance premiums. They haven't asked for that in the past. That doesn't mean they haven't been claiming them. At the end of the year, your mortgage company sends you your, I forget if it's 1098 or 1099 or whatever it is, your mortgage statement, which includes what they paid from escrow to property taxes and insurance. So a lot of people, but not all, a lot of people have insurance and taxes escrowed and the mortgage company pays for it. I have taxes escrowed because there's no real benefit for me paying them because they won't take a credit card, but I pay my insurance premiums because I get points on all of those expenses. I pay it with the credit card and then pay it off immediately, but I get the not points, cash back from that. So maybe your CPA, I would ask this question: have you been filing my insurance as a write-off? If so, was it from the mortgage statements? Or have you just not been doing that and you don't know what you're doing and I need to fire you today? But I would probably not fire them, let them file this year's taxes, let them do all of that, and then immediately go out like Kurt said, hire somebody else. I would look up Bob Langworthy from Maine Bean Counters, see if they service your state. And I'd probably say, after April 15th, because this is their busy season, can we look at my taxes, maybe amend the last couple of years, including this one, because I think there was some mistakes made.
Wealth Factory, another great, and then Anderson Advisors. I know they do some tax strategy. They do file as well.
Or I was advised not to get into real estate because it is a male-dominated field and they will tear me apart. Laura Semenyango from Florida said that. So she agrees with Beth, but you didn't listen. Good job.
Nice.
If she owns rentals, does that increase the chances of a prenup? Just asking. Hi Beth, I'm going to have to start paying my buyer's agent. So if Beth comes back, we'll have to ask her.
I'm actually an agent too.
So how's the NAR lawsuit impacting what people are doing with their buying agents?
Have you seen that little meme where the person is running around with their hair on fire?
Mm-hmm.
I think for the next year, agents who do like one transaction a year or don't really do any, and accountants and lawyers who are smarter than the rest of us are really going to talk about this a lot. But it's interesting how I think the biggest change we're going to come out about all this is how lenders loan. I think you're going to be able to put in a buyer's agent commission into the loan, where right now that's usually puts into the seller's commission structure. And so it's not separate. I think they're going to allow us to separate that, and that is going to kind of resolve all that. People still, you can sell your house for sale by owner. It nets you 5 to 10% less than being represented by a realtor if you don't know what you're doing. And also opened you up to a lot of things. We were just discussing this yesterday with Jennifer, my principal broker, my wife. One of the things that as a seller that you don't necessarily want is an inspection report. Inspectors are kind of crazy. So as the buyer comes in, you have this huge report of all this stuff that they may or may not think they fixed. And wherever they learn to do their home inspecting the year prior, that typically don't have a ton of experience, is what they feel is really important. And they tell you that as the seller, like, oh, we want these couple of things fixed. And versus giving you that entire 78-page inspection report. As soon as you get that inspection report, you have to share that with your next buyer. So if you're a seller and you're not paying the buyer's agent to understand all this information or being represented, like these things could really cause a lot of issues, especially if you have an inexperienced inspector say you have foundation issues, and that's probably $70,000 or $80,000. Suddenly, you're obligated to disclose that somebody thinks you have foundation issues, even if it's completely unfounded. I mean, what would that do to yourself? You know.
So on that note, I've heard so many people talk about foundation issues and everything. And so I had a 3-inch deflection. It sounds like a medical condition, but a room 10 feet was 3 inches off, right? Here's how much it cost me to have that fixed by a licensed contractor. $500. It took less than 3 hours to fix the thing. So when you have foundation issues or one of those big scary things they talk about, that means you get a few quotes and you figure out, yeah, they are sometimes 70 grand. Sometimes it's nothing is wrong except where the settling has happened and it's an easy jack fix. So Ben asks, can I get an overshare on when you backed off from signing a lease once you saw the lady's current living situation? So that's references a story I've talked about a couple of times. And so I don't recommend people do this. So I'm like you, Kurt. I believe you're like this since you've invited us to go shooting so many times. I'm pro 2A, right? Don't go anywhere unarmed. And former law enforcement, former military. So I would tend to meet tenants at their house for the initial first lease signing because I wanted to see where they lived. How you do anything is how you do everything. So if you're not that type of person and you're a little more intelligent and you don't want to put your personal safety at risk, you can meet at Starbucks or at a public place and then look at their car, because how they treat their car can be how they treat their house. And so I've had a few times where I've gone to meet an applicant at their house to answer questions and sign the lease and have chosen not to based on their living conditions. Have you ever had something like that?
I haven't. So we are currently having an MTR, midterm rental, and the person that is in there right now, thank God, is insured by Airbnb.
There you go. Nice. Smart.
But previous, it's been great. It's been good. So yeah, that is definitely one nice thing about the Airbnb is even though we only do 30 days at a time there, they're responsible for collecting rent and getting it back to its original condition. And I'm afraid I might have a full remodel paid for by them coming.
So the overshare for me, and I'm just trying to think of examples of, because it's been more than once. One time was easy. Most of the doors had holes punched in them with tape over them, and it was teenagers living there. But the landlord did this weird thing where all of the bedrooms had locking doors, which a lot of homeowners will do. If you have teens, you wanted them to be able to lock their door. But as a landlord, I don't put locking doors on anything but bathrooms, because locked doors on bedrooms mean teenagers will just break them. It's just been my experience. And so I figured, okay, that's just going to be a problem at my place. Another one was, and you can't discriminate against service animals, but you can discriminate if they have like 7 different types of pets and the floor is all messed up. One was, there was several instances of things that they should have reported to the landlord to have them fixed. Loose cabinets, a door jam that you kind of have to lift the door to close it, and a small leak in a sink. And she was trying, there was a couple, they were trying to tell me, we're great tenants. We would never tell the landlord about these problems because they're not big enough for them to be worried about. And I'm thinking, so you're not going to take care of anything, and anything that I should fix, you're not going to let me know because you think that's a good thing. And so just mentally, they ended up not being tenants. Dieselhound says, foolishness. If there's no volatility, you don't make any gains, except for the consistent cash flow of rentals, the appreciation that happens over a long enough period of time, the debt pay down that your tenants take care of, and the fact that Congress is full of people who own real estate that keep making laws that benefit people who own real estate. None of us said crypto is a bad investment. We all talked about why it's not the investment of our choice. Oculus, I'd rather invest for appreciation than buy Bitcoin. There you go. The
Definitely.
building journey, has anyone used Bitcoin to buy and sell anything? So anyone, yes. Anyone here? I don't know. I haven't.
Mm, nope. Never bought a single coin ever. No Robinhood wallet, no nothing.
Jared says, I have been told to stay in my lane by investors, which for me is co-living in Arizona. I believe there is some pain coming in the multifamily space. Should I stay put or spin up on multifamily to be ready with my 300,000? When you, I should start small and get into fourplex is my feeling. So Jared, you're talking about two very different asset classes, and the biggest change for me. So like Bitcoin, I'm not saying either one of these is right or wrong. Here's why one of them fits my strategy and my goals and one doesn't. I love, can't say that in a relationship, but I can say it about real estate, 30-year fixed rate debt. I want, like your 15-year fixed rate 4% with your seller as a beautiful deal. I would do 15, I would do 30, get the cash flow, whatever it is. I just like fixed rate debt. The why, Jared, you hear so many people say pain is coming in multifamily is because it generally has either adjustable rate mortgage, or even if it's fixed rate, a loan reevaluation period. So in 5, 7, or 10 years, they can look at your debt and say, based on your current NOI, you either need to do a few things. One, completely refinance the property when you don't have the NOI to do it. Two, write us a multiple six-figure check to bring our debt to leverage or LTV to where we want it to be, or you need to sell the property at a time where you might be underwater, because that loan reevaluation period looks at your expenses and your income. And what if that is a period of time where you're doing renovations and you have some tenant turnover and you don't have the NOI they're looking for? So Christian and Cody are killing it in the multifamily strategy system. They're not going with a lot of traditional bank loans, though they're doing a lot of seller financing stuff. But the reason I've stayed with 4 units or less is fixed rate debt. Now, there are things like Convoy Home Loans has up to 8 units, DSCR loans, which would be a little bit higher down and a bit of a higher interest rate, but up to 8 units fixed rate debt. So I did switch my search to look for that. But the reason we're seeing pain in multifamily is a couple of things. One, adjustable rate debt. Two, syndications jumped on board with predictions of rents continuing to go up 10, 20, or 30% like they were in 2021 and 2022, and interest rates going down, which they didn't do. So no one can tell you what to do. I could tell you that in your shoes, I would stay in 4 units or less. But that's just me. Wealth building journey, yes. Members only tonight at 6 o'clock. We will look at deals. Diesel Hound doesn't like what we're talking about digital assets. So, and I understand. We don't want to understand digital assets. Howdy, PE turn RE. Howdy, Curtis. I have a video coming out soon, and it should be on Curtis's channel coming out soon. I went by, and this time when rates are too high and prices are too high and nobody can buy a property, Curtis finds a property on Redfin, a triplex that cash flows, is going to house hack it, and so he's moving in. I went by there and we recorded the video. Thanks, Ray. And we're going to get those videos out soon, talking about the numbers, how to find it, how to fund it, and everything. And you have a great tenant. That's a triplex with 2 different entranceways, and I went in the wrong way. And she's very pro 2E, 2A, and didn't shoot me for parking in the wrong spot. So she was really nice. Robert Fernelia, how would you calculate your financial freedom number that is a moving target, 50 to 100 acres of land plus a building, the minimum of 2,500 square feet? Also, rates in 5 to 10 years are a factor in this. How would you? So my freedom number doesn't include the land that I want. I guess you'd have to figure out the cost of the land, and if rates are going to be in 5 to 10 years. That's a very hard question to answer. I'll read it one more time and see if you guys, let me know if you have an answer to this. How would you calculate your freedom number? Do either of you guys calculate freedom numbers?
I don't.
Not as detailed. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So I kind of do, because I look at it as a teaching method, like whiteboard. This is how you look at it. But I don't do it as the rest of the question of if it's a moving target. So I have a video coming out soon, and here's your spoiler alert, because I'm going to give away the question of this teaser video. It's, if you don't answer this question, you'll never retire. And a lot of people think it's good. What's your freedom number? What age do you want to be? How much do you need? How much money do you need? What's your 4% rule? And none of that is the question you need answered. Here's the question you need answered. And I wanted to wait till that video, but I'm not gonna. What lifestyle do you want after you retire? If you can answer that question and you stop the target from being a moving target, now you can focus on what you need to. And it can be, I want to spend $200,000 a month and do every crazy thing I want to. Well, okay, that's your target. It could be, I want to spend $5,000 a month. And now you know how much more than that you need to have a safety cushion. But what lifestyle do you want to live?
We recently defined that with the goals, and and so we want a property here in Florida. The exact property, what it is, and we know where that is, and there's a range, and quite a bit. The idea, but then acquiring that property isn't part of our freedom number, but our monthly expenses is for that property plus the one we live in, pulling back and forth. Just the idea of where those are, which is why we're working on building portfolio here.
In what part of Florida?
We're in Pensacola, Panhandle area. So,
okay.
But I was driving all over today, so I was in Milton. Really, we want a house with a dock. So, like he's talking about, like something with a little bit of space and a dock, something for a yacht.
So I went to Cape Coral in 2022 for 2 months. And so all the videos are still there. I studied the market, and this actually popped up again about a month ago. So Cape Coral, Fort Myers is by the river, and then you got all the canals for Cape Coral. The north side of Cape Coral, there was massive investing going that was just breaking ground. So they had the 2021 rates on the purchases for investment builds, like they were going to do build to own, build to rent, small multifamily, and their goal was to double the size of Cape Coral. And I talked to several agents there. This is what's going on. The contractors are doing this. And so then everyone kind of stopped talking because a hurricane hit there. I think it was Ian, and some other things happened. So it just kind of fell off the radar. Well, about a month ago, a whole bunch of news sources said the real estate crash has started. Look at how much more inventory there is in Cape Coral, Florida, because all of those builds finished that they'd been planning for 2 years. That's not an inventory explosion. That's a planned growth.
Yeah.
Jason asked the question, what does it cost to get rid of the ads? I've had it with them at $13.99 a month. If anybody here watches a fraction of the amount of YouTube that I do, you should have YouTube Premium, right? I have not seen a commercial in 10 years on any platform. I won't. If I'm on a streaming service and they have ads, I'll turn it off. I want to buy things that I want or need, not things that somebody with a marketing degree and years of experience on psychology can trick me into needing. $14 a month, you can close your device and listen to YouTube. You can have it, that's such a better experience. The biggest impact I've seen is the mid agents saying they'll accept a flat fee for showings. Okay, so Beth, you were back then. I wanted to ask you this question. A couple people asked in the comments too.
Yeah.
Biggest change with the NAR lawsuit. How do you think it's going to impact buyers?
Yes, I think that it's going to be a little bit awkward until people figure out how it's going to change things. It does not prohibit sellers from paying buyers agents. It's just going to be a negotiation. And I work with sellers. I talk to sellers every day. That's the bulk of my business is sellers. And I rarely get pushback about compensating the buyer's agent. I don't think that they're going to stop doing that in most cases. There's going to be a few here and there. And if I was a buyer's agent, I would welcome that opportunity to negotiate it. This is not a new thing. It's been going on forever. People have been able to offer $0, $1, like that's been going on for a long time. And I remember I was working with a buyer a few years back in a hot part of Seattle, and it was a competitive market at that time where there was bidding wars on almost everything. And somebody was offering, I think it was $2,500 or something, which is, I think the house, I forget what it was. It was a high enough price that was like maybe like 10% what you normally get. And, my buyers were like, what? Why is that? Why are they not paying you? Everyone else is paying. Why are they, it's okay, guys. This is an opportunity. it was not a bidding war. We were able to get in for less than list price. We were able to have an inspection. I still got paid. I just wrote it into the contract. The way it worked at that time, I just had to show a buyer agency agreement at X% or whatever it is that I negotiated with my buyer. And I was allowed to ask for more if you go about it this certain way. So it still worked. It basically did, and that may be sort of what it is now. You know, it's going to be different though. I mean, the thing that I think is strangest about this is that they're making it a less transparent process where, so if I have a listing and they're offering X amount to the buyer agent, nobody's going to know that supposedly, unless I might be getting 100 calls from people wanting to know, how do I need to write this contract? Because I don't know what's being offered or not offered. There's somebody will work some way out to address that, but it sounds really inefficient and obscured. Where in Washington a couple of years ago, they're trying to think ahead of this. We were the first state, I believe, or our first MLS here was first one to put the buyer agent compensation out transparent out there on the MLS. So it's syndicated to Zillow, the Redfins, et cetera. So people out there could see, oh, this is how much my agent's being compensated if they help me buy this house. Before that, it was it was murky. A lot of times buyers didn't know how their agent was getting paid or how much. And so I think it's good to be transparent. I do believe that most sellers will still be paying something. Will there be commission compression? Probably. Will prices come down? No, I don't think there's a seller out there that would price their home less than what the comparables say it should sell for just because they're going to be saving some money and they want to pass on the savings. I don't think that's going to happen. I'd be willing to bet money that is not going to work that way. Mike Zuber and I did film a video earlier today where we expounded on this a little more. So there'll be something like that people can watch if they want on the one rental at a time. But there's a lot of ins and outs to this there's a lot of unforeseen circumstances that are unintended consequences that are going to come out of this. It will sometimes be tougher for buyers, especially first-time home buyers that are going to have to potentially come up with additional funds to have an agent, and they're often the ones that need the agent the most. A lot has been said about VA buyers. The VA rules currently prohibit them paying agent fees or commissions. They're not allowed to pay that. So what does that mean for them? Which I would say it would need to be negotiated into the contract for the seller to pay it. But then how does it work if it's competitive and you have multiple offers and this one's asking for the seller to pay this and this other one is not? It's going to make things a little more complicated for a while until people figure out the rhythm of it. But this is not the first time our industry has been disrupted, and it's not going to be the last. And it's always going to be, we're always adapting, and the good agents are going to find ways to do more business and thrive. And those that don't bring any value and are just dabbling, more than half of the agents out there do one or less deals a year. So we wouldn't be surprised if a lot of those agents just filter themselves out. They maybe don't renew their license next time. So, but those that are good and are willing to provide that value. So Washington State also in January, there was a new agency law that it was in effect January 1st, where a lot of these changes already happened here in Washington. So we already integrated a lot of that. Now we have to have a buyer agency agreement before writing up an offer, or ideally before even showing a house. Before you provide real estate services, you need to have a buyer agency agreement in place. Sounds like that's going to happen nationwide. Our MLS here is not controlled by NAR, so we are not necessarily beholden to this ruling or settlement, but I'm also a member in NAR, and so how is that all good? But there's a lot of things that need to be figured out, and so a lot of the brokerages in our MLS are still figuring all this out. There's a lot of things we don't know. Some people may end up having to pay their buyer agent, but I think a lot of times you'd probably be able to negotiate it into the deal to have sellers pay it still. So long answer, long. That could have been even longer, but that's That's a few thoughts about it right now. The main thing that people are going to find a little bit interesting would be if you're used to just clicking a button on Zillow or Redfin to go see a house, you're going to have a buyer agency agreement with that agent now. So watch out for that. And make sure you know what you're signing. They'll probably just send you a DocuSign, click here, and then it's an exclusive buyer agency agreement for 6 months or something. You don't know. So be careful on that, especially if you already have an agent and then you're signing that to just go see some random house. It is possible to get a non-exclusive agreement, so you can work with more than one agent. It can be specific to that one house, but just be careful what you sign. Make sure you understand what you're signing. Make sure you know what, I know in our agreements, it specifies what the compensation is, the default compensation is going to be, and what happens if the seller is offering less than that or more than that, who gets the extra, et cetera. There's a lot of ins and outs to it. It's a lot of buyers are already confused by the process. And so this is going to make them a lot more confused for a while until people get the agency to get their rhythm down about how to explain it. So, because it might be a little overwhelming for buyers who are already overwhelmed by the process. I mean, a lot of investors do it every day, so it's no big deal. But, for people that most people don't do this every day, and they know nothing about how the process works. And so that's why they need the guidance, and it's going to be a little, they're going to need someone to, help guide them through these changes and what this means and what the benefit is to them as well. But I think most buyers are not going to have to pay. I think eventually there'll be some changes to how financing guidelines are what the financing guidelines are, so that there can be more contributions that can be wrapped into the loan. There's ways it might be able to be financed or in some way handled that way.
We have a question here on what would you prefer? High interests or high inflation and an increasing population, or low inflation, the mythical 2%, and a decreasing population? Do you look at population growth when you're investing?
Yeah, I've looked at it, which is why I found this area, but that's not my primary factor. Like I'm looking not for the 1% rule, but I'm looking at what houses cost versus how much they rent for, and what that gap is, and then what the market's like. And then I also not a huge decrease in population, but like just sort of the big picture. What does it more look like? I would not be investing in California just because not just the population decrease, but so many other factors like taxes here, what rentals look like. But you can overcome some of that by having a nice product.
And Beth, have you ever looked at population for when you're buying?
No, but I invest mostly close to me, and I do have a secondary area that's like an hour and a half away. And I know those areas so well that I don't really need to look at that. I can just see that there's a housing shortage just by looking around me, and just knowing what's on the market and what things are selling for. But I have to say, if it was a declining population, that would be a huge red flag to me. And I don't think I would be really hesitant to invest in an area that's losing population, because that means the values are going to go down and you might end up with vacant homes and things like that, which would just be poison to a real estate portfolio, I would think. So as far as how that would compare to inflation, I don't know. I don't have the economic chops that like a Mike Zuber has, for example.
Yeah, me either. When it comes to inflation, for people, of course, I like low inflation. As an investor, I don't hate making a little over $800,000 in appreciation last year because of inflation, right? It's like Zuber's got the shirt. I used inflation to get rich. Ask me how. When it comes to population, I've got this list of things for when I buy. And this is a question from Chester. It is math is a step one, but it's a step. What's the cost to acquire? What's the profit? I can get my cash on cash return there, right? So it's an aspect of it. So you're right. What is the cost? What am I going to be able to make? But then it goes, How many economic drivers are there? Because if there's a rising or lower population and there's only one economic driver there, and so if one thing can change and the whole thing can implode. So several different economic drivers. And then physical aspects of the properties that I'm looking at. Are there things there that are going to help limit tenant turnover, like washer dryer hookups in each unit, good parking, side-by-side units instead of over-under, pet-friendly fenced yards, like all of the things that it's a list. I don't know that any of my properties check off every single box. One of my preferences is a large population. I've never cared or looked whether it's growing or shrinking, but I like a larger population with more economic drivers because more things have to change for me to be impacted. I do invest in a town called McKenna, Washington, that when I bought the property, it had a little over 600 people living there, and now it has under 500. So it's got a 18% population drop in 3 years. Don't care because it's such a small number. But it's within driving distance of all of the economic drivers, right? It's 15 minutes from a base, 30 minutes from the capital, 45 minutes from a city of Tacoma. Like, so all of those factors come into play. I have this long list. The more boxes I can check, the more likely I am to buy. So it can be missing any one of the key ones as long as the other ones are strong enough. And then he follows up with, does inflation hurt a smaller population more, a larger population? I don't think any of us associate those two together. Kurt, I would suggest in the future, we invite Beth to present at the Northwest Action Summit. I think as an investor, as a 1% agent, with the mountain of knowledge that she brings, I think we might be able to peer pressure her into coming.
Oh my.
That's how everybody comes.
Right.
Okay.
It's just because I think that there are still, and I know that this probably hurts my channel to say out loud, I still think that there is a gender bias. I think that there's a lot of people who think this is not an industry for men. Like Laura Semeniago from Florida said, she was told this is a male-dominated industry. You shouldn't bother. They're going to tear you up. I think we need people like Beth to come in there and go, here's how I did it. Here's how it works. Here's the perspective that you and I can't give, Kurt.
100%. It's something we do have focused on and worked on, bringing the diversity in to the lineup, not just women, but other factors as well. We have a big Mexican population in our area, and they call it all kinds of different names, but it is what it is. South of the border, it's great. We have they look at things a little bit differently, like family. Like there's so much other perspectives, like I was talking about earlier. The questions you hear are just the questions you never thought about asking, and that is something Melissa Dorman she is a top agent in our area, very specific on the investor side as well, but just has some phenomenal mindset talks. And she was a clinical social worker, and making $17,000 a year, trying to barely surviving, and completely changed that in like 7 years to retire from real estate. And so she is speaking, actually kicks us off. And an amazing story, amazing mindset shift from debt is bad to I need to live with my means, landlords are bad, to understanding money and what it's meant for, how to use it, how to not be this evil landlord, but also to be work optional and to live the life that she wanted to live. Our title agent, who does a lot of our investor deals up in Portland, Crystal Jane, is speaking. Jen was speaking, managing a panel. Alex Mora, is a hard money lender that talks about how his family, he's the first generation, first person in his family to buy a house. Just bought a house for his mom, to house hack it with her for her, so she has a place. It's just, we're always looking for that. So I can't wait I'm just going to put Beth on the list for next year. So it's done.
Where is it and when is it?
It's in Vancouver.
I missed that part. Sorry.
This year it's May 3rd and 4th at the new waterfront in Vancouver, Washington, Portland adjacent in the tax, the higher sales tax, but less income tax location.
Awesome.
So
Yeah.
it'll be awesome. Zuber will be there. He's a keynote, Christian and Cody.
Love it.
Dion, Millennial Mike. I know he loves that name.
I think
So
you'll like
next year.
Go ahead.
Did I get a volunteer? Are you volunteering to come this year? Is that what I heard?
I can't quite commit to that on the spot, but let's chat about it. Let's chat about it. And I make a great panelist, I've been told. I've been a panelist many times. So if there's a panel, and I just got to make sure, so before I commit, but if not this year, next year.
We won't let Mike pick your Airbnb.
Oh no.
No, we're staying at the hotel there. It's a nice place. The restaurants inside the hotel are El Gaucho and 13 Coins, right? So it's a higher end place.
And I don't need high end. I just
What's a safe place?
I'm not going to get shot,
feel like you need armed security.
Yeah, that's all. Yeah.
It's the safe place. Like, I hate to use the word high end. It does feel very high end. The great thing about it is it's brand new. And so it is high end, but they're giving us a discount because they know we're really cheap real estate investors. And they're trying to get more things to happen there. So this year it's there for sure because of that, for sure.
Yeah. But speaking on the diversity thing, it's one of the things I really love about real estate is it's always a diverse crowd. Like if you go to like any kind of real estate investing conference, it's always all walks of life. And I love that. And it's people, it's not necessarily people that were just born into money. In fact, usually it's not. It's people who found a way to make it on their own, starting from nothing more often than not. And I think that's really inspiring. And you see all different kinds of people. And I am starting to see more women involved, which is great. Although I never really think of myself as like, I'm a woman investor or anything like that. It's just like, I'm just an investor, just like you guys are an investor. I happen to be a woman. I guess that maybe makes it a little different. Or not, if I can inspire somebody, awesome. But, I don't necessarily, that's not how I define myself necessarily. I don't think of it that way. I just think I'm investing because that's what I like to do. And it's just like other things that I do, it's just part of who I am. But yeah, if people aren't seeing that a lot, then that is good to see, if the visual representation of here's somebody who I can maybe relate to a little more potentially. So, but I don't want to be one of those people that only like, I would hope that my message might help people of all different genders or whatever, instead of just the ladies out there, but I'm happy to, network and connect with other ladies that are investing or want to invest. That's an awesome thing. But if that makes sense. So I'm just me doing my thing, just like we all are. So
people start a conversation with me, and the first thing I do is, this is my wife, my principal broker, so we have to run it by her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you have real questions, don't ask me.
Yeah.
Let me introduce you to the person.
Right. Yeah.
Oculus asks a couple of questions here. First is, have you made any updates to your due diligence checklist now that you've done a rehab? So, you've got interested 9 years ago, Kurt. You've been investing 4 years now, basically, with your flips and your buy and holds now. How has your due diligence changed as you learned more?
I would say it's not my due diligence. It's my want-tos. I don't want to flip a house from 1908. I don't want to flip a house from 1927. I don't want to flip a house that looks like a junkyard across the street. Maybe neighborhood specific. And also numbers, like, people were pushing this 70% rule, which is, rules are varying, right? So like even today I go into stuff, my initial numbers is, what does the wholesaler think it's worth, or what do they think it's worth? What's the ARV? I'm just looking at a 70%, and then I'm going to go reevaluate what their rehab is and where do I think it's at. I'm just going to start there, and that's my 5-second gut of like, is that even worth looking at? If it's worth looking at, again, I'm looking at what neighborhoods it's in, what's across the street. When I go to sell this, What is it? If I go when I go to rent this, what am I competing against? Do they have to drive by the homeless camp, to get here? Because that's a no. I just don't want to. So those are bigger things than my due diligence list.
How about you, Beth? From your first couple of properties to your last couple of properties, what do you think shifted in your due diligence?
I'm way more picky now than I was then. When I first started investing, I was just trying to get my foot in the door, and I would take almost anything. And I mean, not literally, but just about. So, and now I'm a lot more selective about definitely the neighborhood, and I like to purchase properties with a lot of upside potential. And I'm looking for things with big upside, whether it's rehab or a land banking opportunity because it's been rezoned and can develop it later. That's been kind of the theme of the last few years. Almost everything I've purchased has been like, okay, here's a little house that I can rent, but it's zoned commercial where I can do a 3-story mixed use building here later when I want to, or sell it to somebody else who's going to do that later. But for now, it's a perfectly good little rental house, those kind of things. Or this is up zone now where you can put townhouses here. Like, so, and I'm only purchasing in areas that are, I purchase mostly like kind of the houses tend to be like maybe C class, but the neighborhood's A or B. So, and I wouldn't buy in an area that's going to cater to a lower quality tenant. I just don't have the time capacity. Even if I'm not even talking to them, I just don't want it taking up my space in my brain to have some problem going on with somebody, not behaving as they should in my rental. So, or paying the rent or anything like that. So, and also I find that I get much better returns over time buying in the great areas. So, and more of it's just its ability. I worked up to that, in the beginning, you can't be that selective or you'll never buy anything. So, but as time goes on, I basically just kind of, I roll properties in 1031. Some properties are just a pain in the ass. And so like, I would sell those and buy something better and then improve on it. And then sometimes sell that and roll it into something else. It's just kind of, it snowballs over time. So you work up to that. I didn't start out being quite so selective,
I would absolutely say that, like, kind of your best deal is your first deal because it gets you going, and you need to do it, and then take opportunities like 2021, 2022 to clean out portfolios and get rid of the crap that should have been this perfect winner that just lost every day or was the biggest thorn, and convert that into something that is more easier to manage.
Yeah.
But just do it. You got to get going.
And some properties I thought I would never sell, and then I ended up selling them because time goes by, and after like 10 years, you've been doing this for a while, like, your needs change, you might want to pursue a different opportunity. Or, for example, I own some properties in Seattle, and then the landlord tenant laws there got to a point where I just couldn't handle that anymore. And I moved about to the east side. Things like that can happen. So, but yeah, my first house was a disaster, but it was also one of the best things I ever did. So, and would I buy it again? Yeah, I would. Of course I would. But now if I'm buying anything new, and also if somebody's willing to seller finance, that's something too. Sometimes it's the seller financing that makes the deal, so it's like, I wouldn't have necessarily bought this house if it was just listed on the MLS, for example, but because this person's willing to negotiate terms with me that are win-win that I wouldn't normally get, I've bought some that way just because the circumstances around the purchase made sense. And the property, of course, has to make sense too. They're not duds, but.
So my due diligence shifted in one aspect, but mostly I'm with Kurt on my wants changed more than my due diligence, right? For 10 years, I invested the super lazy way. I wanted rent ready or already occupied property so that I didn't have to do a rehab. I had never done one. I retired and then I figured I have free time. I might as well do a BRRRR. I have all this cash. I could self-fund it so I don't have to worry about a hard money timeline. So I'm doing the BRRRR and I realize I don't like it. I don't want to do this again. And it's going to create out of thin air that didn't exist last year, $250,000. It's still not worth doing. I don't know that I'd do it for $1 million. I'd think about it for $1 million, but I don't know that I would do it. I want time freedom more than money. And time freedom doesn't come from creating money. It comes from creating cash flow. So in my due diligence going forward, my wants are I want rent ready or already occupied properties that don't need a lot of work. A couple $1,000s or maybe something big like a roof or something. Sure. Because that's just one estimate, one time getting estimates, one job that doesn't involve my time. So that's the want that's changed. Here's the due diligence that's changed. I don't want to own inside city limits anymore. My properties that are just in unincorporated county never had an issue. I own inside, and I don't want to name them, so I'm gonna. Lakewood, Washington, and Port Orchard, Washington are very challenging to own in because Lakewood has a registry for rentals, and they send in an inspector who's untrained, doesn't know what they're doing, and inspects stupid stuff that doesn't matter. Right? I don't know if maybe you've never heard this before, but I had a tenant that had a Disney princess light switch plate. We had to change it out while the inspector was there because it didn't match the other ones.
What?
That's Lakewood, Washington.
Absurd.
And then Port Orchard, I have contractors that tell me, oh, this rehab, super easy. It's going to take like 3 months. I'm 7 months in. I'm at least spread out throughout 4 months of delays with permits. Whereas permits in county, and if it's electrical, since it's through labor and industries, that's like an afternoon instead of 3 months or whatever. So my due diligence that's changed is I'm going to prefer, that doesn't mean I won't ever bone inside a city limit, right? A good enough deal with enough of the other things checked on my list, I will pursue. But if I have a preference between two, one's in city, one's out and unincorporated, definitely going to lean the other way.
Unless it's unincorporated King County, then you might want to skip that one.
No, you couldn't pay me. You couldn't pay me enough to buy in King County. You couldn't. Literally, there's no number that's large enough. And King County, like Seattle spreads to the county, King County spreads to the state. So there might come a time in the future where I sell everything and move to another state. It's entirely possible. Then Oculus asks kind of a follow-up question here on this rehab that I get all of my contractors from Thumbtack. One that I've worked with before did some work, but it's a new county, so it's kind of a trip for him. But everyone else was from Thumbtack, and I hired him for small jobs, right? One I sent to a rental to do a small drywall repair, and then I got an estimate, and they did the drywall in the other unit. So they're all from Thumbtack. And you asked if I've ever gone with less than positive reviews. No, the reason I use Thumbtack is because I get to read reviews, and if they don't have stellar reviews, I don't touch them. I don't care if their price was half of someone else's. If enough people on Thumbtack took the time to write a negative review, I don't want to be the same person doing that in a month. So I think, there's two last questions here. And then we'll finish up with this. Rick asks, do you think there's more demand in condos and townhomes in a large city? I'm in SLC, Utah, and it seems like they're building more multifamily. They're building multifamily everywhere because in 2021, when you could start that, they had low interest rates on your builds. So they're finishing those out now. That's why it seems like there's more. So what do you guys think? There are more demand on condos and townhomes in a larger city? Seems like that's where there'd be more of them.
I don't know, like the cost, like I honestly just backed out of a deal for a plethora of reasons, but there's four. I'm from Portland. Average price of homes of 550,000 for like entry level. These condos are in the mid 300s and they're sitting on the market right now. So there's 4 condos in this place sitting on the market in the mid 300s. These are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot, fairly decent, not that old, should be flying off the shelf condos that are taking price reductions to the tune of $10,000 every 2.5 weeks. Why are they sitting there?
I know
Have
the
you seen that,
Seattle
Beth?
area, the Dadus and townhouses are the popular thing, and now they're upzoning it even more. And people are always looking for ways to maximize the highest and best use of the property. The more you can build on it, the more return on investment is the idea. So builders are always going to max out. In our area, they're going to max out whatever they can build on the lot because it's very expensive just to build it all. It might not be that way in, say, I'm just guessing, Kansas or someplace like that, where it's a lot of land and it's easy to build, less expensive. But the cost of breaking ground is astronomical in our area. And so they have to maximize what they get. And that's why you see they're always building these mega homes or these McMansions or whatever you want to call them. Or if it's zoning allows, they're going to do the townhouses or the condo because that's going to maximize your return because it costs a fortune just to break ground. And that's why you don't see lower cost in our area, lower cost new construction. It's always going to be the top value. So, and yeah, it is in the urban areas, of course, you're going to see more demand for that, but it's all about zoning. You can only put those where it's zoned. So if you're looking for the path of progress, like I just mentioned, I collected a few properties in an area that did do an upzone to townhomes. And so I'm not building the townhomes. That's not my thing. I might someday decide to build townhomes, but I also might lose my shirt trying to do that. So I don't know, but I might just sell it to somebody else to do it. But which is another way you do it. Like you just get it ready and somebody else takes it and goes with it. Or you don't even do that. You just sell it to some builder who, will buy it from you later. And that can be a way to make money too, if you can see what's coming down the line. And part of that's just being aware of where the zoning is and where it's changing. So yeah, I think that there is a demand for it. Of course, it's going to vary. I don't know what it is in Salt Lake City, but I hear Salt Lake City is a pretty hot real estate market. So I imagine there probably is demand there for that. But as far as investing in condos and stuff, like just because like what Kurt said, I wouldn't buy a condo as an investment property, but I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that would. It's just not for me.
So when it comes to townhomes and condos, there's three things I will never buy when it comes to a rental, right? The less the person makes declarative statements, the less apt they are to look foolish in retrospect. But this is one I'm going to make. The first one is no HOA. I will not own a rental in an HOA. If somebody gave it to me, I would sell it and redeploy the funds, right? So townhomes and condos are out for me, so I've never considered them. So I wouldn't actually know where there's more of them or where there's building going on. I just kind of dismiss them. So that doesn't mean
Some townhomes don't have an HOA.
Most
Some are
townhomes don't.
a lot of them in Seattle are not HOA. They're just to put that out there for
everyone
people.
I've seen in Pierce County has had it. Like it's right
Yeah,
on
not if in Seattle, they're usually 0 lot line single family homes, and they just have something recorded on there about what happens when the roof needs to be replaced or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you're still sharing a wall with people that you have no control over, so there's that. But there's no HOA on a lot of those.
BuzzTune asked the last question for tonight. Go ahead, Kurt.
I have a lease option on a condo with a phenomenal HOA, and here's why the HOA is phenomenal. The president of the HOA owns 33% of the units in that whole complex. He's about ready to retire. I'd like to buy that portfolio from him. I'm just putting that out there in the world. So he controls what happens on the voting of the HOA. So I love that condo association because the rates will never go up.
So the rates can never go up, but you might run into the situation like Matt the lumberjack landlord, where all of a sudden there was a $70,000 due from each person in the HOA.
So in this particular HOA, because he owns so many units there, right? He would be hit with, I don't know what 70,000 times 30 is, but that's not going to happen. So while he's currently president, and I have an option on it, so not only do I not actually own it, I just control it. I'll sell it the second that happens. But
here's the last question from BuzzTune, and it was just a couple of minutes each to answer this. When deciding to mentor, so when you're going to help somebody get into investing or real estate, what do you want to see in a person before you give your time? Beth, let's start with you.
I would say I would like to see that they're taking action already. I would want to know what they're doing now.
Okay. Kurt?
That's the same thing. So I usually ask someone to reach out. I said, here's my email or phone, reach out next week instead of a time. Like that's my first filter. Like if they're not willing to, that usually weeds about 75% of people out. And then like, hi, let's go have coffee. If they don't have time to do that, like, how much time? And then what's the first piece of advice? How are you going to take action? What are you doing? And like, they're not willing to start taking action. Like, that's the next step. So then it's just a little bit of filters between, of what kind of action are they willing to take? Yeah.
So for me, and this will be what I close the video with, in order to mentor, to actually give my time. So I'm here on YouTube with a channel to help people get started. So I talk to email, message, all that stuff. I have members only where we talk in Zoom. People who have not taken action, but they're in the learning process. I have no problem with that. But the question is, when you give your time, when you actually mentor, and there are dozens, so I couldn't name everybody all at once. But when Laura Semeniago reaches out in Florida and says, hey, you're in Florida, I'm house hacking my duplex. I have some questions. Can we meet for lunch? When Dividend Dave says, I'm moving from Bellingham to Louisiana to buy a duplex to house hack. And sorry, Dave, I never remember where you moved to. Or when Josh and Mary, the Martin properties, say, we're coming up from California to go to lunch, and they buy a duplex to live here. Or Curtis reaches out and says, I just bought my triplex. It's my second one. And I go over and it's like, how does this schlag-coated lock work? What light switches would you replace? Like, I will definitely give my time to the person who's taken the steps. Like, the cumulative time, YouTube and Zoom meetings and everything, pretty much anybody that's interested. But I'll filter down to the people who are going to be making offers and buying deals to say, okay, you get like my afternoon. The whole app is me coming to your property to see what we can do. So I think that's, if you're really looking for a mentor, take some steps, make some action in the asset class that you're looking at, and then it's the mentors show up.
Yeah, because a lot of people like to hear the advice, but they don't want to take it, and that's the vast majority. And it can wear people down. The givers, we have it's because when we say yes to giving to one person, we're saying no to somebody else, and it's a finite supply, and so we're all givers, and we want to see people succeed. But the best thing you can do if you want to try to get it to be mentored is to show that you're taking action, that you're going to do the work, and you're going to get out there and make moves, because the vast majority don't. So if you can show that you're doing that already, that's really going to help you. And if you respect their time too, the giver's time.
Cool. We're going to wrap the video up there. I've got to get to my members only live stream. Northwest Action Summit, May 3rd and 4th. Kurt, if you could, I'll probably post your email or how you want people to get a hold of you as the first pinned comment in this video. And Beth, I'll do the same with is it Beth Traverso Group or Traverso Group?
Beth Traverso Group.
Okay, I'll pin that down there too.
All right.
Thank you guys so much.
Nice to meet you, Kurt.
Nice to meet you as well in person.